All right, we formed a quorum, so I call this meeting to order. Would members please confirm the minutes of the following meeting? Paper number CB bracket 1735/2012. That's the minutes of meeting on the 22nd of January 2013. So far, the Secretariat has not received any proposed amendments. So, if there are no further views from members, I will confirm the minutes. Any views? No? All right, thank you. Now, since the meeting held on the 26th of February 2013, the panel has received a number of information papers which are set out in the agenda. Any views on the information papers? If not, we will move on to the next agenda item. And that is at the next regular panel meeting, which will be held on the 23rd of April 2013, Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. The administration has proposed to discuss the following items. Number 1, Public Works Program item number 259 RS, cycle tracks connecting Northwest New Territories with Northeast New Territories, Chunmun to Shangshui section, stage 1. Number 2, changing multidisciplinary directorate posts to designated grade posts. Number 3, strategy to increase land supply. Reclamation outside Victoria Harbour and Rock Haven development. Phase 2 public engagement. And number 4, planning and engineering study for housing sites in Yuen Long South, stage 1 community engagement. To allow sufficient time to cover all the items, I propose that the time for the next regular meeting be extended by 1 hour until 5:30 p.m. Any other views from members? Yes? Thank you, Chairman. Well, there are many items to be covered at the next meeting, but in terms of the strategy to increase land supply, the Secretary would like to compress the timetable and expedite the progress. From the application list, we are moving on to the reclamation outside Victoria Harbour and Rock Haven development. And after the news came out, many green groups and other organizations would like to express their views, and the Secretary would like to seek their views as well. So the panel should consider, on this matter, hold a public hearing to allow the members of the public to express their views. That's my comment. All right, we can have two approaches. On the one hand, the administration may consider whether to hold a public hearing after we heard the administration's views, or we hold a public hearing first. I personally think that we should have a briefing from the administration before we hold a public hearing. Do you think that's all right? I agree. And if everybody also agrees, then it's a matter of priority. I think we should have a meeting with the administration before we hold a public hearing. Okay. So, if there are no further views, we move on to agenda item 4, which is planning study on future land use at Anderson Road Quarry, final recommended outline development plan. Would the staff please invite the administration in?
我哋開咗之後先講嗰度。好啊，歡迎出席。
May I welcome representatives from the administration, and would the administration please walk us through the paper? Mr. Chan? Thank you, Chairman. Members, now the Anderson Road Quarry will cease its operation in 2016. And after restoration, about 40 hectares of land would be available for future development. To optimize the use of land and to increase land supply, on the 1st of January 2012, the administration kick-started a feasibility study. And after 2 rounds of community engagement and having done the feasibility studies and technical analysis, we have come up with the final recommended outline zoning plan for Anderson Road Quarry, which outlines the future land use, and I'd like to walk members through this proposal. During the Stage 2 community engagement, we collected views, and based on the views and based on the keen demand for housing, we have adjusted the available planned population from 23,000 to 25,000. As for private public housing mix, it's roughly 80 to 20, providing about 9,410 units, including 7,530 and 1,880 subsidized housing units. For subsidized housing units in our study, we assume that HOS will be developed. The administration also understands from Kwun Tong residents their concern about the impact on traffic brought about by the Anderson Road Quarry development. So all our studies have incorporated this factor, and our conclusion is that if we introduce suitable measures, the problem can be resolved, including for planned population, after the proposed increase, so long as we have mitigation measures, there won't be any significant impact. And we're expediting the studies on how the traffic in Kwun Tong can be improved, and we hope that the proposal can be implemented as soon as possible so that more land can be made available to meet the future housing demand. I will defer to my planning department colleagues to walk you through the final recommended outline development plan, final RODP. Now, for this planning study on future land use at Anderson Road Quarry, may I walk members through the proposal. This one is a quarry, and this one is the Anderson Road development. And now public housing is being built or being studied, and the study started in January 2011, and it's been 2 years. And we have had 2 stages of community engagement. The first stage took place between August and November 2011, and stage 2 took place between June and September 2012. And having gone through the 2 stages of community engagement, we have prepared papers for panel members' reference. And for the studies, we have come up with some conclusions, and we have prepared the final recommended outline development plan. And we're here to brief members on the RODP. As I said just now, last year between June and September, we held a stage 2 community engagement. We held a number of briefing sessions, public forums, roving exhibitions, and for the Quarry Park, we held a design ideas competition. And during the community engagement exercise, we conducted the site visit with district councillors on the traffic improvement measures and also proposals concerning pedestrian connections. Now, in terms of the Stage 2 community engagement, the views collected show that the planned population and the private to subsidized housing ratio were acceptable, and there was no objection to the use of proposed subsidized housing site for HOS development. And the idea of living in the park concept were generally agreed and supported, and the Quarry Park and the relevant facilities were also supported. And we have already announced the result for the Design Ideas competition. It was well received. And in terms of traffic proposals, these proposals were accepted and there was no objection to the diversion of traffic in the future, and on road improvement measures and pedestrian connections, our proposals were generally supported. I will come to that in a moment. Last year, we proposed the draft RDP for the public community engagement. The planned population was 23,000, with private flats standing at 6,920 units. And having done the engagement exercise, and we propose that the planned population be increased by 2,000 from 23 to 25,000. As for housing units, the number will increase from some 6,000 to some from 9,410, and we need to make some adjustments and refinements. A site originally reserved for school will be used for residential purpose. This school will be relocated to this site, which was originally reserved for GIC facilities. We will also slightly increase the plot ratios and building height restrictions for 8 residential sites. And we will also propose refinements for pedestrian connections. And we have come up with the final RDP. And this table shows the comparison between the draft and final RDP in terms of the number of parameters. For example, planned population 23,000 to 25,000. As said, the planned population will be increased slightly from 23,000 to 25,000 with a difference of 2,000. As for number of residential sites and number of flats, we have increased the number by some 760 to 9,410. And for plot ratio and building heights, so on and so forth, all these have been slightly increased. Now, there are 4 key land uses for the area. One is residential communities. And in the residential area, we're going to divide the site into northern community and southern community. Both will consist of residential, commercial, and also GIC sites. The 2 residential communities will be linked by the green pedestrian corridor. You can see from this sectional view that there will be a lot of trees and a lot of greening measures. And apart from that, one feature of this development is the Quarry Park. It will cover 17 hectares, including a platform portion and the rock face portion. 11 hectares for platform portion and 6 hectares for rock face portion. Now, for Quarry Park, as I said, we have a concept ideas competition, and we received tens of proposals, and all were very creative, and their ideas will be incorporated in the final proposal. Apart from the platform portion, we also have the rock face, and a platform and lookouts will be constructed at the rock face. There will be a lookout at 310 meters and MPD, which will offer a spectacular view of the Victoria Harbour.
And other than that, we will also have a civic core. It's mainly between the northern and southern communities. It's a low-rise development, and commercial activities will be carried out there, and also there will be some GIC facilities, and also there will be an indoor sports facility. There will be an additional population of 2,000, and the number of flats will also increase. So we have conducted some supplementary technical assessments, including traffic, sewerage, drainage, environmental, etc. So we have come to this conclusion. That is, now the proposed population is 25,000, and technically this is feasible. And we can provide more supporting facilities, and there will not be problems that cannot be resolved. In the community engagement, we discover that the district council and the people living in the vicinity are very concerned about the traffic issues. So with the additional population and number of flats, we have asked the consultants to conduct a supplementary traffic assessment. That is, whether a population of 25,000 will have any negative impacts on the traffic condition in the area. So we have looked at the traffic assessments, and then we have come up with the following major recommendations. First of all, we will encourage future residents of the study site to use the southern vehicular access to relieve the traffic burdens on Kwun Tong Town Centre and Choi Hong Interchange. And also we will undertake improvement measures for some major roads and junctions in the area. We will encourage residents in the area to use more public transport, and encourage future residents of the study site to use Lam Tin and Yau Tong MTR stations so as not to overload the already congested Kwun Tong MTR station at peak hours. We will also enhance the pedestrian connectivity between the study sites and the Kwun Tong Town Centre. Now this map shows our future traffic arrangements and road junction improvement measures. Now here is the quarry, and at Lin Tak Road and Sam Mau Ping Road at the junctions, there will be improvement measures. At the moment, you will have to wait for the traffic light to turn green before you can turn right onto Chang Kwan O Road here. In the future, there will be a free flow of traffic. There will be no traffic control, and also Lin Tak Road will be widened. And also for Clearwater Bay Road and Anderson Road, for the northern egress, there will also be improvement works. There will also be widening of New Clearwater Bay Road near Shenli Chun Road. And also pedestrian connections will also be enhanced. After the Stage 2 community engagement, we have decided to enhance pedestrian connections, and there will be alternative routes. There will be different pedestrian connections. Now there will be development on the hill. So how are we going to lead the pedestrians back down into Kwun Tong Town Centre? We will conduct further studies concerning different routes, and there will also be additional routes. After consulting the public, we propose that a new road be built here connecting Po Tat Estate to Chang Kwan O Tunnel. And also here will be a transport interchange. Other than traffic, we have also conducted visual impact assessments, and we discovered that for our future development, it will not have any negative impact visually. As for implementation, it will be divided into two phases. Phase 1 development covers the southern community and parts of the civic core. And Phase 2 development covers the northern community and the remaining part of the civic core. Sites are expected to be made available for development starting from 2019 to 20. As for our next steps, our two developments, civil engineering development department as well as the planning department, will take the following actions. Now the EMDD is now conducting an engineering feasibility study. We have incorporated the recommendations we mentioned just now, and we will look at the feasibility of all these. And also, after the existing quarry contract has expired, site formation works, road works, and infrastructure provisions will be carried out. As for road junction improvement measures and pedestrian connections improvements, etc., this will be completed before the resident occupancy of the future developments at study site. As for planning department, Other than coming to this panel, we have also visited Kwun Tong District Council, Town Planning Board, and Sai Kung District Council. Kwun Tong District Council and Sai Kung District Council, and we've briefed them on the final RODP. They generally agree to the planned population of 25,000 and a private subsidized housing ratio of 80:20. As for the next step, we will propose zoning amendments to the Kwun Tong North OZP to reflect the land use proposals of the final RODP for the Town Planning Board's consideration. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Now members can ask questions. I suggest that 4 minutes be given to each member. That would also include the government's reply. I will read out the names of the members who are going to ask questions. First, Chen Yunheng, Chen Kar-lok, Chen Kam-lam, Chen Kim-po, Leung Chi-chang, Chen Kwok-wai, Chen Lai-won, Claudia Mo, Yip Kok-him, and Hu Chi-wai, 10 of them. First of all, Ms. Chen Yunhan. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the planning department's work, well, I've heard the PowerPoint presentation just now, and I think it's okay. Yet I have several questions. If you only give me 4 minutes, then I don't think the planning department will have enough time to answer. Now, let me talk about the skyline first. Now, if you look at the site from Jordan Valley, I see that the buildings are higher than the ridge line. Now, why is this skyline like this? Is actually blocking the view of Tai Shan Tok. It's actually very beautiful. I always go to the town planning board and look towards the hill there. Actually, it's very beautiful. But if the buildings are blocking the hill, is really an eyesore. And you are telling us that there's no problem with the future traffic, and there will be a population of 25,000 in the future. But there are already a lot of residents living in that area. You want to divert those people to Yau Tong and Lam Tin. Yes, I understand this is different from Chi Wan Shan, because 80 to 90,000 people are living on the hill, and every morning they have to take minibus to the town centers. But still, I think there are problems with this site. If you go to Clearwater Bay Road, yes, you will be having improvement measures, but I think there are still problems. And also, I have a third question. Now you are talking about these 3 major pedestrian connections connecting to Kwun Tong Town Center. Many years ago, I've already made some suggestions, and you have taken my views on board, but I still have some questions now. Here is a line going through Shun On to Shun Tin, and then we'll go to Hill Line, and then we will reach Kwun Tong. And that's another line, which is in orange. It will lead from Anderson to Song Mau Ping to Choi Ping North Estate, and then we'll go to an MTR station. And the third line will lead to Po Tat. So for these 3 lines, I would like to ask the planning department to clarify this. Are you sure that this will happen? Why is there an orange line, and why are there 2 lines that are in green? And this is a large-scale development. Are you going to do everything at the same time, or you are going to carry out the DAR first? Now, I think we had a bitter experience at Chi Wan Shan. Every time we visited the site, we criticized seriously, and gradually things were improved and escalators were built. Of course, now at Fong Tat, we are still very unhappy, but this is a large-scale project. And here you say that there will be a pedestrian connection to Kwun Tong. Do you have to complete all the DAR before you build this link? We hope that all these works can be carried out at the same time. So I have 3 questions, and I hope that the government can have enough time to answer me. Who is going to answer this question? I would like to thank Ms. Chen for her questions. First of all, about the visual impact. As you can see from this PowerPoint slide, now you can see the existing condition and the future condition. Here is the DAR, and it's mainly a PLH development. There will be 18,000 flats. So when the DAR is completed, behind it, that is the Anderson Quarry already, it will be blocked. So for the DAR, it will only have a very slight visual impact in the future, because this will be behind the DAR, and from this synthesized picture, you really cannot see the development in Edison. And also about the pedestrian connections. The stage 2 community engagement, we asked the consultees about the different pedestrian connection proposals. For this orange line, this is our priority. This is the most central path and is easiest for the pedestrians. So this will be our priority project. And after the community engagement, we discover that residents in the area had other views. So other than this solid line, this is actually what we first proposed. You can see this dotted line here, and this is an alternative pedestrian route. So for all these possible routes, the CEDD will be looking into them when they conduct their feasibility study.
But we will ensure that before the population intake, the proposed connections will be completed. As for other traffic improvement or traffic arrangements, so on and so forth, we have considered the development, and according to the traffic impact assessment, it's feasible. Dr. Kenneth Chan, please be concise and allow more time for the administration to answer. I'll try my best, Chairman. The mix of 80 to 20, I think this is from the original administration's proposal. That's 80% private housing and 20% subsidized housing. I am a new member here, so I'd like the administration to tell me the justifications and some history about that. I read from the paper that the ratio of subsidized housings could be increased slightly. So I'd like to know more about the ratio. I know the population planned will be increased from 23 to 25,000, but I'd like the administration to explain to me a bit. For para 2829 of the paper, I have a question. I'd like to know when the population intake will take place, and it's been suggested that by 2015-16 there will be intake of population. But here, this is saying something about the intake after 2016, and then the traffic impact assessment, so on and so forth. I think I may be mistaken. In fact, according to the paper, the development will not be completed until 2019. So why will the intake, population intake, begin in 2016? Yes. Well, let me explain about the paper first. For para 29, we're talking about the DAR, the development in Anderson Road. For the site expected to be made available for development starting from 2019-20, we're actually talking about the quarry. I'll defer to my colleague. Now, for this site, it's situated in Sao Mau Ping, and there are 4 housing estates, starting with Shun and also Potat Estate as well. So we hope that a balance could be achieved for this development so that the housing mix would be more appropriate. So for private to subsidized housing ratio, we have set it at 80 to 20. Despite the increased planned population from 23 to 25,000 and the increased number of units from some 8,000 to 9,410, the same ratio remains, and that is 80 for private and 20 for subsidized housing. As for the overall housing mix in Sao Mau Ping, our proposal will help. According to the information, in 2010, for subsidized and private housing ratio in Sao Mau Ping currently is standing at 90 and 10. So, without development, the housing mix will be improved in Sao Mau Ping. That is to say, the private to subsidized housing ratio will be changed to 16 to 84. 16 for private, 84 for subsidized. Okay, so you're looking at the whole of Sao Mau Ping. Is there any chance for upward housing, for people to climb up the housing ladder with the HOS development? Have you make such an estimation? We've also considered this point as well. Sao Mau Ping is quite an old district. Some people will want to move up the housing ladder, and we have also incorporated this factor. If you have this estimation, please provide the data to us. Next, Mr. Chen Kam Lam, and then Mr. Chen Kim Po. Mr. Chen Kam Lam, please. Thank you, Chairman. The population and plot ratio proposed, I think, is too conservative, frankly. If you increase further, I will still support it. Originally, the plot ratio for residential site will be increased was 1.44 and it will be increased to 1.49. It's only a slight increase. I think you can consider further increasing it, building height as well, the same situation. So I think the main problem is that for this development, is situated in quite a densely populated area, and it's situated in Kwun Tong. So with more population, we need to consider the burden on traffic and the use of roads. In your proposal, you have proposed some road improvement measures, but I am concerned about the section between Clearwater Bay Road and New Clearwater Bay Road. There would be a very serious traffic jam, and at the roundabout, the burden will also be increased. According to your proposal, before the population intake, the improvement measures will be completed. But I have a suggestion. By 2015-16, some 40,000 population will be moving into Anderson Road development, and this will bring about a heavy burden on the traffic nearby. But all the improvement measures are still in the pipeline. So I'm concerned. Even if you kickstart the development now, by 2015-16, the improvement measures will not have been completed. So I think the improvement measures should be implemented first. You should not wait until the population intake before you improve the situation. You can either construct a new bridge, an M10. You can bring this project forward so that the pressure bring about by the new population can be relieved. And for Clearwater Bay Road, along this stretch, the situation may be disastrous. Traffic jam starts at 7 each morning all the way until 8 and 9, and the administration has not been attaching or paying attention to this problem. So we should take this opportunity whilst developing Anderson Road to carry out improvement works here as well. You should not wait until population intake. I'll defer to the colleagues from Planning Department to take this question and also to say something about the traffic arrangement. Planned population, it will be increased from 23 to 25,000. We think that 25,000 is the maximum, mostly because of traffic concerns and also the restraints on storage. So whilst we acknowledge the keen housing demand and the views for development density to be increased, we also need to consider the major principle, and that is we only increase these parameters when no impact will be caused to these matters, and therefore we think that the 25,000 planned population is already the maximum, having considered all the development constraints. If the population exceeds 25,000, we might need an additional primary school. And in turn, because of the additional primary school, the number of units or number of residential units might be decreased. That is why we've kept it at 25,000. Mr. Chan Kim-po. Thank you, Chairman. Now, the final RDP shows that the planned population and the number of units have increased, but for private housing, the plot ratio remains at 3.0 to 5.5. It's suggested that the ridge line should not be obstructed. Does it mean that there will be some low-density developments? And there is a sea view available. So will it become a site for luxurious property development? The other point is about traffic. You have a planned population of 25,000, but East Kowloon is getting more and more crowded, and your proposed improvement measures seem to be too simple. It seems that you're underestimating the situation. You may not be able to relieve the overloaded MTR, and I hope the administration could, at the same time, whilst carrying out this development, resolve the transport and traffic problem in East Kowloon. Otherwise, there'll be a total gridlock, and the situation cannot be resolved. Thank you, Chairman. Well, to respond to the point about residential sites, the land should be able to meet the future housing demand. Mr. Chan suggests whether we will consider introducing flat size or flat number restrictions into the lease conditions. When we come to the land sale stage, we will consider the market situation and the locations of these sites and consider whether these conditions should be introduced. We do not have any idea on that at the moment. As for development density, we need to consider the capacity and the building height constraints. It's not a low density development. I'll defer to the planning department. We have already considered the building height. We consider this a medium-rise development instead of a low-density, low-rise development. And as explained just now, we need to balance a number of factors, including the original planning principles and planning ideas, and they should not be compromised. What about traffic? We understand that there are concerns about the transport issues in Kwun Tong. We're going to introduce improvement measures. As said just now, there will be pedestrian connections facilitating residents going down the hill to MTR stations. And just now, Mr. Chen or Ms. Chen talked about Clearwater Bay Road and other road junctions, and there will be road or junction improvement measures. And these works will be completed before the population intake. There may be concerns that there could be traffic congestions when population intake starts for Anderson Road, but we'll try to complete those works before the intake, but there are statutory procedures to go through. Anyway, the administration also understands the traffic concerns. From a strategic point of view, we have a T2 trunk road and also other roads, and all the roads will be constructed or will be completed before the completion of Anderson Road project. And for the new trunk road, this will be realigned, and this will help relieve the problem in Kwun Tong.
同事提嘅問題都類似，不過我就有啲睇法呢，對於一個新區嘅發展。
Thank you, Chairman. But I also have some views on that. Now, housing development can accommodate a larger population, but I'm also concerned about the supporting facilities. Just like my constituency in Tin Shui Wai, poor planning will bring about a lot of problems. So I can see from the views expressed by local groups and district councillors that there are problems like health care, and the other problem, that's traffic, it's mentioned by the other member. My third observation is that you don't seem to have a playground for schools. So schools may need to travel to other districts to hold a sports day, and there aren't sufficient sports facilities for local residents. I see that the large site in yellow has been reserved, and this is for Rock Haven development. Can you build a new park there? Now, for residents, it's not convenient. Yes, you do have public transport for access to that district, but to that area. But some residents will need to walk. So will you consider providing barrier-free facilities like escalators, etc., or lifts and escalators? Now, about Mr. Yu, about sports ground, we have considered this facility. We have preserved a site for GIC facilities, and there will be an indoor sports center there. As for other facilities, there will be a lot of open space in the Quarry Park for outdoor sports activities.
Well,
for the yellow part, I mean this map, you do not have any specific developments planned for that? Oh, for the yellow part, it will be the rock face. What I'm talking about is here. This place will be reserved for an indoor sports complex. And for the ratio between the ratio of 80 and 20, I think we do not have enough subsidized housing there. So would you change it to 60-40 or 50-50? Now, when we considered this ratio, we had to look at the whole of this district. Now, for the whole of Wong-fat, when it comes to private to subsidized housing ratio, is already 9:1. So at this place, if we can provide more private housing, it would achieve a more balanced housing mix there. Now we have a private to subsidized housing ratio of 80:20, and including the DAR and the other area, in the future the ratio will be 84:16. Mr. Fan Kwok Wai. Thank you, Chairman. I have a comment and 3 questions. As for my comment, I am looking at the Quarry Park, the vertical transportation system, etc. I think these are very good proposals, and they are in line with Stage 2 community engagement comments. But we also have a keen housing need in Hong Kong. A lot of people are waiting for public housing, and now the private to subsidized housing ratio is 80:20, but I think it should be further fine-tuned. Yes, I understand that near Shentin Estates and Wong-fat there are a lot of public housing, but we understand that in the past few years many private housing flats have been built, and many of them were bought by mainlanders, in particular in the last 2 years. And now you are saying that you will increase the number from 69,000 to 6,900 to 7,500 flats. And I think many of them will be luxury flats. And also there will be more traffic problems if that is the case. Now, what 610 private housing flats will be turned into HOS flats, and if that is the case, the traffic problem can be eased a bit, because those people will tend to use public housing, and it will not impose such a huge pressure on roads. And now the government is trying to find more sites for housing, so I hope that the government can reply to me. So can a ratio of 80:20 be fine-tuned a bit, and after this fine-tuning, will it benefit the traffic flow? And also I would like to ask the government this. Now, for private housing, will the principle of Hong Kong land for Hong Kong people be applied? Well, maybe I can answer the last question first. Now, for Hong Kong land for Hong Kong people principle, it will be implemented in 2 sites, which will be tendered by the end of this month. They are in Kai Tak. As for Hong Kong land for Hong Kong people, we will have to identify suitable sites for this principle to be applied. We do not rule out any possibility, but at this stage it's really too early to decide concerning this site. So you are saying that this principle will not be applied to DAR? Well, at Kai Tak there will be 2 sites, and we will apply the Hong Kong land for Hong Kong people principle there. And in the future, if there are suitable sites, we will implement this measure again. However, these sites are not launched into the market yet, so at this moment we would not say 100% that certain sites will be for this purpose. As for private to subsidized housing ratio, I explained just now about our justifications. Now, at Wong-fat and Kwun Tong, the ratio of PRH is very high. So we think that the present proposed ratio of 80:20 is appropriate. We have already achieved a balance. of housing mix. Ms. Anne Chang. Yes, we indeed have a shortage of land in Hong Kong. And for the plot ratio for private housing is 3. Originally it's 3 to 5.5. Now it's reduced to 3. So the plot ratio is very low. So why can't you increase the plot ratio? As per private housing estates, for example, in Chang Kwan O, the plot ratio is 5 to 8, and Tai Kwu Shing is 8 to 10. And now we are talking about high-density private housing here. So why can't you increase the plot ratio? This is question number 1. And when I look at your plan, well, there are schools there, and but you have not planned for nurseries or school or pre-education centers. So maybe day nurseries should also be planned for. Now for the plot ratio, why is it as low as 3? We are talking about the additional site. Originally, it's a site for school. Now, due to its location, we do not want to block the development behind it. So that's why the plot ratio here is a bit low. And we have to consider the visual impact. And originally, this site was not intended for use by residential developments. So that's why its plot ratio has been set at 3. As for nursery or daytime community center, well, there won't be a lot of problems. Well, for this kind of facilities, they can be provided in composite developments, buildings, and also in the northern and southern communities, GIC sites have been reserved. So when community buildings are built here, nurseries and daycare centers can also be established. I don't understand why for subsidized housing the plot ratio is 6 and for private housing it's only 3. It's mainly because of the location of the size of the sites, and also the environment. As for the subsidized housing sites, it's more towards the south. It's here. And for the plot ratio of 3, the site is actually here. So it will have an impact visually. So that's why there is a difference in plot ratio. Yes, I understand there's a difference, but still you haven't answered my question. What is the difference? Now, at mid-levels, there are skyscrapers with there are high skyscrapers, and also there are buildings by at the harbour fronts which are blocking the ridge line. So how come the private housing plot ratio here is only 3? Why can't you raise it to 6? Is there any technical problem? Maybe I can supplement. Well, for private housing, it's not always 3. It's from 3 to 5.5. Why is there such a difference? Because just now, the planning department's colleagues has already given you an answer. That is, when we conducted a consultation concerning the sites, we heard a lot of views, and also Ms. Chen Yinhan also mentioned this. That is, people are very concerned about the visual impacts. And when we did the planning, other than considering the visual impacts, we also had to think about the ventilation corridor, etc. So all these factors have to be taken into account when we decide on the density and building height. So that's why we have different plot ratios from 3 to 5.5. Now, the size of different elevations, and also we will have to to look at the overall design, etc. So all these have to be factored in, and we have strike a reasonable balance. Have you considered building higher buildings? Our planning department colleagues have mentioned this. That is, we hope that we can keep the ridge line of Taishan Talk, because from Hong Kong Island you can actually see this ridge line very clearly. We do not want to block it. Ms. Claudia Mo and then Mr. Ipok Him. This is a huge plan. And when I look at it, it's very pleasant. There is a lot of green. You also have a green corridors. So you have shown us some artist impressions, and they all look very pretty and pleasant. Well, housing is the biggest problem in Hong Kong. The Leung Chun-ying government has been ruling for some time, and it's been telling us that there is a shortage of land. And now we have this Anderson Road site. So now we have this site. We want more people to enjoy it. And on the waiting list, there are 200,000 people. And I'm surprised to hear that the private to subsidized housing ratio here was originally like is now it stands at 80 to 20. Now, of course, you would not apply this ratio at Cadbury Hill or Kowtow Hill. Those are luxury housing. And how big is Hong Kong? We want to provide more flats to Hong Kong people. I really cannot accept this ratio of 80 to 20. If you say that this cannot be changed, I really don't understand why. Now it's just a draft, so why can't you change it? How about changing it to 60-40 or even 50-50?
So 80 to 20 is totally unacceptable. The other question is, I don't really mind not having any visual impact. I don't mind part of the ridge line being obstructed, but I'm concerned about wall effect buildings. Have you worked with EDP and considered what happens if you have a row of buildings in front? Will this create a cannon effect? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Mo, for your question. When we consider the housing development for the whole area, we also look at our experience in past development projects. For example, when we developed Tin Shui Wai, we did receive views about the housing mix. Say now it's 18 for private and 82 for subsidized housing. And some suggested that this ratio was too high. So when we plan for new development areas, we want to look at the vicinity and try to achieve balance. So 80 to 20, we think this is appropriate. Chairman, I want to follow up on it. The ratio of 80 to 20, you're not going to change it. It's 80 to 20, right? He's answering you. Thank you, Ms. Mo, for your question. This is the final recommended outline development plan. And this is a development consideration. Our next step will be to go through the statutory procedure for amending the OZP, and for residential sites we will apply for zoning and carry on with the development. We think the ratio of 80 to 20 is appropriate. But perhaps colleagues from planning department can take your question on wall effect buildings. Wall effect buildings. Our consultant in the study conducted a ventilation impact assessment. We need to make sure that the land use and the orientation of buildings will not create any wall effects or have any impact on ventilation. And we are satisfactory with the design. We're satisfied with the design. And some high-rise buildings will be closer to the rock face so as to minimize the visual impact. Will you adjust the plot ratio? Now, for plot ratio, we have considered different aspects. As explained just now, the planned population is 25,000 and some 9,000 units will be provided, and these two figures are already the maximum, having considered various factors in our planning principles. And there are different views from the local population that the increased population is already too much, and the whole area of Kwun Tong and Sao Mau Ping is already facing, is already being subject to huge traffic pressure. Next, Mr. Wu Shiwai is not here. All right, Dr. Fernando Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. Now, the ratio for this DAR is 80 to 20. That's private to subsidized housing ratio. But in fact, all the units will be put up for sale. Even for HOS flats, they will be put up for sale. For grassrooters living in subdivided flats and people who cannot afford a flat, they will not be given any help, so we have reservations. The administration says that in Sao Mau Ping currently there are already a lot of public housing estates, and they need to achieve a balance. But let's not forget that we're talking about an urban district. We're not talking about Tung Chung or the islands or the new territories. It may be difficult if you do not have a balance in private and to public housing ratio in Tuen Shui Wai. But this is within the urban district. And if you say that when you need to rebalance the 90-10 ratio, it's not reasonable. You should not rely on just this set of figures to justify the luxurious property developments. Now, we are all suggesting that the plot ratio be increased and the ratio be adjusted from 80 to 20 to a high ratio for public housing units, and not all subsidized housing should be HOS flats, and that should also be the Hong Kong Property for Hong Kong People policy in this project. And what is your view on that? Yes. For flat size and flat number restrictions and the conditions of Hong Kong Property for Hong Kong People, when the land is put up for sale, we will consider whether to introduce these conditions. We will not rule out the possibility at this stage. As for the housing mix, as mentioned just now, judging from past experience in developing other new areas, we should not just consider the traffic, the impact on traffic, but the development of the whole community. And we have heard views during the consultation exercise that if public housing occupies a large ratio, it will not be good for the development of the whole district. As Anderson Road development is a new development, we want to achieve a better balance. Actually, right in front of Anderson Road Quarry, and that's Anderson Road development. If we combine these two sites, because for this site, this will be used solely for public housing. And if we take the whole area and consider the ratio, you can see that the situation is actually exactly the opposite. So you should not just look at the site itself, you need to look at its surrounding. Next. So which way? Sorry, the speaker's not coming through. Now, this development at Anderson Road is for residential purpose, and we're all concerned about traffic. I think that some studies were conducted, the situation was analyzed. Basically, residents do not work within the district. They might need to travel to other districts, and the traffic problems are thus generated. Now, the cause of the problems is, on the one hand, roads, and I'd like to know more about the improvement measures. And I think that for public transport, we need to consider what kind of transport or public transport will be used. I see that there are proposed pedestrian connections, but all of these connections lead to Kwun Tong. Does it mean that these people would go down to Kwun Tong for interchange to other kinds of transport, or will there be public transport available in your plan? I mean, according to your plan, where will these people go? It will affect how the roads are used and how and what the capacity is. I think that sometimes people may not want to take long journeys along those pedestrian connections. They might want to take public transport instead, and this will increase, this will overload the road system in Kwun Tong. So I'd like to hear more details about that. And the other point is for the private to subsidized housing ratio. I share my fellow members' views. In your proposal, you considered that there are already 40,000 public housing units at Anderson Road, so the subsidized housing for the Anderson Road development seems not sufficient. We see from the past that the subsidized housing would turn into private housing in the end. Yes. We take a multi-pronged approach to address the traffic concerns. In order to minimize the impact on traffic brought about by Anderson Road development, one prong is road and junction improvement measures, the other prong is pedestrian connections, and the third prong is future supporting facilities. We hope that these supporting measures will be completed before the intake stage. I'll defer to my colleagues to say something more about traffic. We totally understand the traffic concerns. During the Stage 2 public engagement exercise, we received queries from the public on transport and traffic, and for Kwun Tong district councillors, they also focused on transport and traffic issues. In particular, they think that the Kwun Tong MTR station is already overloaded and the area is already very congested. So with a proposed increase in population, we also have supplementary technical assessment on traffic, and we also will be providing shuttle buses for residents, taking them to Nam Tin and Yau Tong station, so as to avoid overloading the already congested Kwun Tong MTR station. We will also encourage residents to take public transport. We are going to provide public transport interchange within this site. We also have a series of road and junction improvement measures. Apart from road traffic, we've also proposed a number of pedestrian connections, and these will be linked with existing footbridges to facilitate residents living up the hill to travel down to Kwun Tong and other areas. Next, Dr. Kwok Ha-ki. Chairman, I don't know what to say to DS because many members already expressed many views, and you just keep repeating that this is already the best plan. 80-20, you say that this is the golden mix. So I don't know, are you going to promote your plan, or are you really here to listen to our views? We're talking about 80 hectares of land. We have little land for use in an urban district, so 160 hectares, that's a large site. For grassrooters who cannot afford luxurious flats, and we're talking about $15,000 per square foot for a flat in the new territories nowadays. So if you maintain the mix of or the ratio of 80-20, you are wasting this piece of land. For people living in subdivided flats, people who are on the PRH waiting list, you must review this plan. The other problem is with traffic. I don't know whether you have considered the work of the Transport Department. The Transport Department constructed a pedestrian link for people living on the mid-levels in the Central and Western District, and these people, these residents, could make use of this link, and the burden on roads could be eased. And here, a pedestrian escalator should be constructed, not only for people living in Anderson Road development, but also for Sao Mau Ping. If you want to relieve the burden on traffic, what you should do is to reduce the number of parking spaces and encourage developers to use, say, electric vehicles or escalators instead. In Hong Kong, private and public housing ratio is 50-50, and now you're proposing 80-20. Are you trying to protect developers? Are you giving giveaways to them? You say that you're not going to change your plan. So one question for you. Having heard our views, are you going to come back and report to us, having heard our views, whether there's any better way or whether you will change your plan?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, for Dr. Kwok Ha-ki's first question, when the Planning Department colleague made the presentation, he already said that for the DAR, there will be a plan for pedestrian connections. So will there be an escalator? There will be lift towers and footbridges. As for the details, The CEDD will conduct feasibility studies, and it will be looking into all these connections. As for the housing ratio, just now we have answered many times. During community engagements, well, actually, we conducted 2 stages of community engagement. Well, Chairman, sorry, how many people living in subdivided flats have been consulted by you? Have you asked them about their housing needs? Well, Chairman, when we did the development planning, we consulted 2 stages of community engagements. We tried to listen to the views of the relevant people, including district councils. And also we had some open forums. We tried to gauge views of the residents in the area. And for our proposed ratio, it's actually decided on after listening to such views. We are trying to strike a balance. Now, members are telling us that they hope that the private to subsidized housing ratio can be fine-tuned. We have answered members' questions many times. Well, other than this development, we already have a mechanism under the planning department and the housing department. Well, they would look at size and try to find out how public housing can be provided in a better manner. Now, we will definitely achieve the goals set out by the CE. We will provide enough lands. Mr. Ip Kwok Him. Thank you, Chairman. For the DAR, when I look at the plan, well, actually in the past it was a quarry, and if you want this plan to be carried out nicely, I think greening must be done in a proper manner. Otherwise, the living quality of future residents will be affected. So there must be more greens, and there should be open space, because now it's already up in the hill. So can you provide the residents with more greeneries and open space? And just now we've talked a lot about traffic, and that is the greatest concern of district councillors. Because if you do not have a good traffic network, it's very difficult for the residents to move up and down the hill. Now, if you just rely on buses and minibuses, that would not be enough. The population of Hong Kong is aging, and I believe that there will be a lot of elders living in the future DAR. So I think you need escalators to increase accessibility. Otherwise, the elders living there may not want to go out, and for the people who have to go to work, there may be a lot of difficulties. As for the lifts, I think they will mainly be connecting the northern community. As for the connection between the east and the west, I hope it also can be enhanced. So can you assure us that the traffic will be convenient for the future residents? 2 questions. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to thank Mr. Yi for his questions and his comments. Well, for the DAR, we hope that we can have a good planning so that there can be more green space. Well, this is not only for the enjoyment of the residents there in the future. We also hope that the residents in this vicinity can also enjoy such green space. As for the concept of the development, we want to make use of the rock face of the quarry so that we can have some recreational facilities which have its own characteristics. We will revitalize the whole area. So in terms of planning, these are our directions. As for traffic, just now we mentioned pedestrian connections. And when we conduct the relevant works feasibility studies, this will definitely be looked into. There are priority pedestrian connections, and we will be studying traffic and pedestrian flow in our feasibility studies. And also the planning department as well as the transport department will be cooperating closely. When population intake starts, we hope that the traffic network has already been completed. Ms. Ho, and I think we should draw a line after Ms. Ho's questions because we have been dwelling on this issue for quite a long time. We still have 2 other items to discuss. Ms. Ho, I'm very concerned about the private to subsidized housing ratio. Now it's 80-20. Oh, we haven't seen many new subsidized housing in the past years. And now we still need 5 to 7 years before we can see new subsidized flats. Now, after 6 or 7 years, even if there is no newcomer on the waiting list, we still have 120,000 households waiting for subsidized housing. Well, the government told us that there should be a proper ratio between private to subsidized housing. Well, for Tin Shui Wai, because it's remote, so the situation will be different. However, for Anderson Road, people don't just look for jobs in that area. People can work in Kowloon East. And the government was promoting the Kowloon East plan to us, and you told us that there will be a lot of job opportunities there. So why can't you have more subsidized housing flats here? Well, some people may have to work in restaurants, they have to work till very late, so maybe you really should build more subsidized housing flats here. And for this ratio of 80-20 is totally unacceptable. So can the government tell us that in the future when you have new sites like this, the ratio is the same as 80-20? Because we also see this ratio in Northern New Territories. Well, Deputy Secretary, will this remain unchanged? For the private to subsidized housing ratio, just now Ms. Ho mentioned our developments in the new territories. Now, for example, Northeast NT, we will increase the ratio of subsidized housing. And we are now doing the relevant work. We also hope, we hope that the ratio of subsidized housing can be increased to half. As for the DAR, we have to look at the whole district. That is the present situation of the whole district. As I said just now, right in front of the quarry, there are constructions on Anderson Road already, and they are all PLH flats. So it's not that we are not providing land for PLH. All along, we have been doing this. We will achieve our public housing targets. However, at the same time, we need to achieve a balanced housing mix. Well, in Hong Kong, other than subsidized housing, which includes HOS and PLH, we also need to provide private housing. Well, Chairman, I think it's a waste of time. It's repeating all the time. Now we have 200,000 households on the waiting list. In the past years, the supply has fallen short of the demand. So for new sites like this, if we do not increase the ratio, we will never be able to catch up, and social grievances will continue to accumulate. Now for Northeast NT, you changed the ratio is because you were criticized, and now you want us to scold you again? I hope you can take members' views into consideration. We would like to thank the government officials for answering members' questions. Let's conclude the discussion of this item here. Thank you. Next agenda item. Agenda item 5. Quality of Dongjiang water and water quality monitoring by the Water Supplies Department. Well, please invite the government officials to come in.
好多人問啊，食水啫嘛。好啊！哇！呢樣幾味道。好，歡迎出席會議嘅政府代表。
May I welcome representatives from the administration. Would the administration please walk us through the paper, please? Well, we prepared a PowerPoint presentation, but I see that the meetings go behind the schedule. So, Chairman, would you like me to do the presentation or with the PowerPoint, or just do it verbally? Oh, perhaps I will briefly take members through the paper, and then I'll take questions. The paper basically briefs members on the quality of Dongjiang water and the water quality monitoring by our department. Water is a necessity, so we're all concerned about water quality. We import 70 to 80% of our water from Dongjiang River, and in terms of water quality monitoring, we can divide it into two parts. One is for the Dongjiang water supply system, and the other is once water is imported into Hong Kong, the WSD will also conduct monitoring. Now for Dongjiang water, we do have an agreement, and it contains a requirement on water quality, and there is a standard, and that is GB 3838 2002, environmental quality standards for service water. And the Guangdong province has also enacted laws and instructions on the transportation of Dongjiang water into Hong Kong, and works are also implemented to protect the water, to ensure that the quality of water imported in Hong Kong can meet the standard. For Water Supplies Department, we also have a system. For this plan, we have water quality monitoring all the way from the supply source to the end user point. And there is also a WHO water safety plan, and we have implemented the World Health Organization's standards in our water quality monitoring. And to ensure the quality of water transported from Dongjiang to Hong Kong, we have several mechanisms. And that is to say, we have institutional mechanisms with Guangdong Province, including a Guangdong-Hong Kong water supplies business meeting. All the relevant matters will be discussed at this meeting. And for Dongjiang water quality, we also have a special panel on the protection of Dongjiang water quality. We also have a notification mechanism for our daily operation. In the event of major incidents, they are required to notify Hong Kong, and the Water Supplies Department also has its arrangements on how these incidents are to be handled. I have covered all the major parts of the paper. Thank you, Chairman. All right. Questions from members? I suggest that each member be allocated 4 minutes to ask the questions, including replies from the administration. I'd like to read out the names of members. Member Sir Dennis Kwok, then other members, Gary Fan, and then Yip Kwok Him. Dennis Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. Now, I'd like to speak on the last slide of the PowerPoint presentation of the administration. It talked about the use of Dongjiang water, but we need to look at the situation now. It's really worrying. In 1998, between 1998 and 2003, we spent $3 billion to buy water from Dongjiang. All the water was discharged. In 2005, we discharged 190 cubic meters into the sea, and we overspent by 300 million. Now, according to another reporting, between 2008 and 2011, we overspent by $1.4 billion, or $140 million in buying Dongjiang water. We're talking about an additional $4.8 billion spent on Dongjiang water. Much water has been wasted. The water was just discharged into the sea. Now, water shortage is very serious in China. According to their figures, 43% of the water along the 7 major rivers in the mainland is already heavily polluted. They can no longer be consumed. Whilst we are squandering water away, water shortage is serious on the mainland, and we're still wasting money on buying water from Dongjiang. So there should be a review to make sure that we don't waste water, we don't overspend on the purchase of water, and we should consider how water can be saved for use by people on the mainland. I understand that the question will not be able to be answered within 4 minutes. I just want the administration to carefully consider the comments I have put forward. Yes. Now, I'd like to talk about the discharge of Dongjiang water into the sea. According to our supply agreement, we have a flexible arrangement. We have a monthly estimation on water consumption. We estimate the amount of water to be used in the next month, and then we notify our counterpart, and based on our estimation, they supply Dongjiang water to us. So, it's not the case that Dongjiang water imported in Hong Kong will be discharged into the sea. Now, there is this problem of discharge into the sea because when there is rainfall, some small reservoirs may not be able to hold all the water. And I mean the water coming from rainfall. And we then see discharge of potable water into the sea. For Dongjiang water imported, they will be kept at larger reservoirs. So there is extra water to be discharged into the sea at the moment. So, Chairman, may I ask for some figures to be provided, because this is too abstract. Over the past several years, do you have the figures? I can speak on what happened in the past 2 years. Chairman, I have put a lot of important questions to the administration. Please reply to me in writing if you don't have time to reply to me now. Well, just to supplement, in terms of figures, we are talking about roughly 10 million cubic meters per year. That's because the reservoir cannot accommodate heavy rainfall. For smaller reservoirs, it so happens that the water gets accumulated in water gathering grounds. So you're sure that we have not purchased any additional or extra Dongjiang River, because according to our supply agreement, we will notify Guangdong Province of our estimated monthly consumption before they supply the water to us. The situation is not what you mentioned. We have not discharged Dongjiang water into the sea. Next, Mr. Chen Hai-kan, followed by Ms. Claudia Mo. I have 3 questions, one on water quality. Just now, Mr. Chen already mentioned that the water quality must meet the standard of the environmental quality standards for surface water, and there are some indicators, 5 indicators, in fact, chemicals, so on and so forth. But if we look at the quality, there are other indices. For example, heavy metal, lead, mercury, potassium, cyanide. Why can't we be told the content of these chemicals? Heavy metal content is very important in terms of maintaining water quality and health. And if you compare compare Dongjiang water with Hong Kong water, and that is water collected in reservoirs in Hong Kong. In terms of water quality, which one is better? The third question is that recently the DAB conducted a survey on how members of the public understand the increase in the new water sources, and there is an innovative idea of using recycled water. That it may not be for potable use, but it can be used for car washing, etc. In the North District, there was a trial run of recyclable water, and in the end, because of resource constraints, the plan was shelved. So I'd like to seek the administration's views on recycled water. If you do not study into the feasibility of recycled water, why then are you spending money on the desalination plant study? PAS. Now, water quality, in terms of water quality, we have only quoted several standards in our paper. In fact, on our website, we have parameters for each standard. For example, the environmental quality standards for surface water. The information is available online. And over the years, according to our surveillance, we have not found any substantial change in terms of water quality. It has all along met various standards. So apart from regular monitoring, the members of the public could also access the relevant information on our website. As for Dongjiang water and its comparison with water in our reservoirs, well, for Dongjiang water imported in Hong Kong, they must meet the standards as I have mentioned. As for water collected locally, according to our plan, there are different stages of monitoring. From raw water to end user, there are different stages. Water will have to be stored in reservoirs, and water will be transported to treatment plants and also to service reservoirs before it's transported to distribution networks. And at each stop, we have a monitoring mechanism. We will take samples from, say, treatment plants and water gathering grounds. We will look at the water quality, and we can all along monitor and see if it departs from the standards. Our monitoring mechanism is in place, and we know clearly whether there is any substantial changes in water quality. I asked about recycled water. You may want to supply this information in writing afterwards. That is to say, we want to explore different new sources of water, and we are looking into various technologies. In the future, in the northeast new territories, there will be a new water treatment plant, and we will see if we can recycle the water there so as to create another source of water. All right, Ms. Claudia Mo, followed by Mr. Gary Fan. Thank you, Chairman. Dongjiang water can easily become a political issue. If Hong Kong people is disobedient, mainland officials will say that if you don't shut up, we're not going to provide Dongjiang water to you. And the administration has already answered that there is no wastage of Dongjiang water that we purchase. But every year we need to buy over 800 million cubic meters of Dongjiang water. You said just now that there won't be any wastage of water. It's dependent on consumption. And yet we need to fork out money anyway. So we should not squander it away. We should import less than 800 million cubic waters, and the price is now $4.5 to $4.8 per cubic meter. So water is a valuable resource. And my question is, according to a magazine, the supply of Dongjiang water to Guangdong province is charged at $1 per cubic meter. Why is there such a big price difference? Water leakage in Hong Kong, well, it has reduced from 20 to say 18%, but in Japan it's just 7%. Can we improve this? Third, on desalination of seawater, the cost per cubic meter is as high as $12. But now the cost for water coming out from the tap is $8 anyway. So why can't we pay more? We can learn about the desalination technology in Singapore. Why is it that they're able to push down the cost to say $3.5 per cubic meters for desalinated water. If we can create our own source of water, we won't be threatened by those officials. So can you learn from Singapore and improve our desalination technology?
嗰個8億2
For the 800 million cubic meters, actually in the agreement, the water supply can be up to this level. So when we sign an agreement, we would make estimation concerning the amount of water we need in the coming years. We hope that the water supply reliability can be up to 99%. Now, why is there a differential? It depends on the rainfall in Hong Kong, so you can see that sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So now we are using this annual supply ceiling of 820 million cubic meters. This is reliable. In 2011, we used almost 810 million, so that's very close. And that's this and a level that we agreed on after calculations. As for water leakage, we have also done a lot of work. For example, replacing old water pipes and also water pressure management, etc. Because Hong Kong has a very special geographical feature, that is, there are many hills. So when a reservoir is in the hills and when is led to a lower area, the water pressure will be high. This is due to the environment. And now the Water Supplies Department has some measures in place. The water pressure is now lowered and there will be less bursting of water mains. So for water pipe bursting and water leakage, the situation has actually improved. And by 2015, we will complete the water pipes replacement, and water leakage percentage can be reduced to 15%. As for water pressure management and testing of water leakage, etc., all this work will continue to be carried out. As for seawater desalination or desalinization, we will try our best to drive down the cost. We will definitely make reference to overseas countries, including Singapore. We know that Singapore is using a new technology called reverse osmosis. We have conducted studies into that, and actually technically that's feasible in Hong Kong. And last year, with the consent of the LegCo, we also started another study on seawater desalinization, and now we have earmarked a place in Area 37 in Tseung Kwan O. We are trying to find out if it's technically feasible to build a seawater desalinization plant there, and cost-wise, would it be cost-effective enough? We have hired a consultant to do the study. Of course, overseas reference will be looked into, and also we will try to find whether there is state-of-the-art technology so as to drive the cost further down. And when it is necessary, we can use seawater desalinization in the future. Mr. Fan Kwok Wai, followed by Mr. Ho. Chairman, in the 70s, when I was a kid, I watched a movie. It's about water rationing in Hong Kong. And the firefighter would tell people who are suffering from a fire that they have to pay, otherwise they would not use water to distinguish the fire. And now we are having the same problem with the Guangdong province. The government has signed an agreement with the Guangdong province, and Hong Kong has to buy a certain amount of water from Guangdong. And even though Guangdong province is not actually supplying that amount of water to Hong Kong because we do not need that much, we still have to pay that amount. And when we look at Seoul, Rome, Beijing, and other countries, we are paying a very expensive fee for our potable water. Chairman, I have two questions. First, in the coming year, you will have to discuss with Guangdong again about the Dongjiang water supply agreements. So will you look at other countries' experience? For example, Singapore is buying water from Malaysia and is paying in accordance with the actual water that is supplied. So, and can you also speed up the study on seawater desalination? And by doing so, maybe you can force Guangdong province to lower the water price. As for the water price, the Hong Kong government and Guangdong government have been negotiating about it. Actually, we have some criteria. Now, we will have to look at the operating cost. Water has to be transported to Hong Kong, and it's a long way. So water prices at different places are different. Now, if you want to transport Dongjiang water to Hong Kong, you have to go through very long aqueducts, and sometimes you have to pump it uphill. And storage and monitoring will have to be carried out so that the water quality can be up to our standards. So all this means work and money. So for our agreement, we have to look at all these operating costs. We will have to look at the different commodity prices of the two places, and also we'll have to look at the exchange rate between Hong Kong dollar and RMB when we enter into an agreement. So every time, all these factors will be taken into account when we discuss with the Guangdong with our Guangdong counterparts. So how about calculating in accordance with the actual amount of water supplied? Because Singapore and Malaysia can do it, and they are not on very good terms. Now, if we look at the actual amount of water used, then we will have to decide on the unit price of water. So how do we calculate that? Now, the Guangdong province would have to transport water to Hong Kong, so it would incur cost, and it would make its own assessment. So this involves two issues. First of all, now in the agreement, we have a supply ceiling. So if we do not have this supply ceiling, can we get enough water that we want? Even though we do not take this into account, our counterparts would make an assessment because they have to calculate their cost. So this is not a simple formula. And this would also have an impact on the unit cost. And the unit price may even be more expensive than what we are paying now. But even though Guangdong province is suffering from drought, they still have to supply Hong Kong with water. And the WSD is saying that Hong Kong people have been wasting water. Now, after entering into an agreement, now we have a guarantee of 820 million, because that's in the agreement already. So the beauty of it is that if we do not need that amount, there will not be a waste. I think in 2005 we dumped 300 million tons or cubic meters of water into the sea. Well, the government official is trying to answer your question. Well, sometimes our reservoirs cannot hold certain amounts of water. So if the reservoir does not have a big capacity and it cannot store all the rainwater it receives, then it has to discharge the water into the sea. So this has nothing to do with the supply of Dongjiang water. Now, can we speed up the study so that we can identify another water source sooner? Well, actually, we have started the study. We started it at the end of last year. So before building a seawater desalination plant, there are a lot of technical issues to be resolved. First of all, we have to conduct an EIA, and that will take some time. And of course, we also have to take into account the cost effectiveness and how can we drive the cost further down. Yes, we can take reference from other countries, but we cannot just borrow their whole system because Hong Kong has its own special situations. For example, where are our intake points, etc. Ms. Sid Ho and then Mr. Ip Kwok Him. I think Hong Kong has been wasting a lot of water. Let us not talk about this agreed supply from Hong Kong, which is now 3.8 billion. And also, it's not that because we are rich we should waste water. Let's not talk about these. I think Hong Kong has not been doing a very good job about potable water. When it rains too heavily, there will be flooding. And we have been doing a lot of work, for example, providing underground reservoir to solve these flooding problems. And also at the mid-levels on Hong Kong Islands, there is a new sewerage system. It's from the Guan Chai mid-levels to Kennedy Town. And then the collected flood water will be discharged at Cyber Port. Actually, I think the water gathering ground in Hong Kong can be wider.
If we can consider recycled water and desalinated seawater, we can, if we can spend so much money on all these things, we can actually collect water for Hong Kong. Well, last time when the water collecting pipes in the mid-levels were constructed, the question was followed up in electrical, and it was said that the administration would look into that, and now we are looking into desalination of seawater, and shouldn't we consider this as well? Yes, we will consider that. Having collected rainwater, I think what Ms. Sid Ho referred to is a rainwater collection pipe. That is, we collect rainwater in the mid-levels and have and discharge the water directly into the sea to lower the chance of flooding in densely populated areas. Now the direction is different. Originally, the collected rainwater will go into the water gathering system, but finally the water will be discharged into the sea. Now, at the central mid-levels, there will be interception facilities, so that water will be collected there instead of passing along densely populated areas. As for whether the collected rainwater can go into water gathering facilities and finally become a water source for potable use, we can look into that. But we might need to store the rainwater first, and we need to consider whether there is any space for conserving rainwater. If water cannot be conserved in the vicinity, we need to construct pipes to bring the water there. Chairman, water and energy, well, we need to conserve both. But when we have insufficient water, we need to think about this. We spend so much money on constructing rainwater tanks and pipes, and in the end, the water is discharged into the sea. It's no different than buying water from Dongjiang. Water is one of the valuable resources. It should be put to optimal use, and we need to consider how this can be done. We also consider whether too much energy would be spent in order to achieve this purpose. Next, Mr. Yipohim. Thank you, Chairman. Many colleagues just now talked about doubts on the supply of Dongjiang water. But for those who are in the know, you will understand that we are competing with other provinces for Dongjiang water, because we lack water resources. For this fixed unit approach, this is already a special arrangement for Hong Kong. We do not have such a large place to collect rainwater that can feed the whole population. We all understand that if we just rely on rainfall, water rationing will happen again. And water rationing has not occurred for many years. In terms of the price, I think more information should be provided by the administration, or members would think that we're paying too much for Dongjiang water. So perhaps you can give us more information. Now, I'm concerned about this. Development on the mainland is very fast, and we see that the pollution is getting quite serious. In paragraph 15, you mentioned the notification mechanism. Now, this mechanism has already been set up. So, my question is, after setting up this notification mechanism, has it operated normally, or say within or in the past year or in past several years, has the Water Supplies Department received any notification under this mechanism? If so, would there be information concerning the extent of pollution or the source of pollution in the notification to WSD? So that we can explain to members of the public. Now, on pollution, I think that there is also a standard for water quality. Has it exceeded the standard, or was it below the standard? Was it mentioned in the notification? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Gibb. Thank you, members, for reminding us. We are very fortunate. We have not had water rationing for many years. In fact, in 2008, we introduced the total water management strategy on water conservation and reducing water consumption. We want to reduce demand and improve water supply, and this is what we have been doing, including education. The WSD does regularly visit the schools to educate students on water supply, and we also have a water resource and conservation center recently opened, and we also have a plan to reduce water consumption. We have a plan called Let's Save Water by 10 liters, so that for every person who takes part in the program, they will have the initiative to reduce water consumption. Mr. Yip asked about the mechanism. The mechanism has been in operation, and under some circumstances we have made use of the mechanism to introduce improvements. My colleagues can speak more on that. But in terms of water quality, of course the Guangdong province would make announcements, but at the same would notify us, but at the same time our department also carries out its own work. At the first stop when water is imported into Hong Kong, we have a station where round-the-clock monitoring is carried out. That is to say, water samples are not only taken on a regular basis, but that real-time monitoring around the clock will be carried out, and should there be any problem with water quality, notification will be done. The Department of Water Resources on the mainland will notify us immediately in the event of major incident, and we will also conduct our own monitoring and see what's the cause of change in water quality. And with this mechanism, all along, we find that the water quality has all along been meeting the standards. I'll defer to my colleagues to speak more on that. Through the notification mechanism, we communicate on a frequent basis. For example, for the 24-hour real-time monitoring, if there are an milk cool pumping station, if we find substantial changes in water quality, we will communicate with our counterpart and try to find out the cause. If on our regular monitoring we find that water quality is changed because of some instance, say vessel collisions, notification will also be carried out, and we will take responsive action. That's for a major contamination incident. For other changes in our daily monitoring, when we find that the figures have changed a bit, we'll also communicate with our counterpart. Mr. Chan Kam-lam. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, over the years, we have been following up on this issue at LegCo. Ms. Claudia Mo cited the Singapore example, and that for desalinated seawater, the unit cost is just some $3. I'd like the administration to provide some information to us and see if this is true. If so, desalination of seawater should be supported in Hong Kong. But according to the administration's paper, the unit cost is $12 per cubic meter. Why is there such a big difference? Are they adopting more advanced technology than ours? So I think the administration should give us more information. Now, the quantity of water to be supplied is capped at 800 million cubic meters. I think this is for the purpose of safeguarding water supply in Hong Kong. Some colleagues, I think, might not understand the history of this issue. Then they should really do their homework instead of casually accusing ourselves of wasting water. We have an agreement behind, and we should not see this issue as the mainland taking advantage of us. Now, for Singapore, the situation is different. Singaporeans envy Hong Kong for being backed by the mainland, which provides a lot of support for Hong Kong. For Singapore, on food supply, electricity, and water supply, they encounter many problems. So I hope the administration can give us more information. When we talk about water supply, very easily, some people would escalate this into a political issue that is a matter of Hong Kong-China relationship. Now, I'd like to say something about water quality. The administration just now responded by saying that for our mainland counterpart, they also have regular water quality monitoring. So, in the event of major incidents, would our government officials be told of the reason for such a major change in the water quality? I understand that in mainland, to ensure safe water supply, many cities and provinces have sacrificed industrial developments. I'd like to know whether there is any study on the cost of changes in the indices for water quality. Thank you, Chairman. Now, about the change in water quality, I'll defer to the Water Supplies Department because they have some information to provide. Chairman, the Water Supplies Department has all along monitored closely the water quality of Gudongjiang water. Apart from the 24-hour real-time monitoring, we also, on a regular basis, take samples to conduct detailed analysis and testing so as to monitor the level of pollutants and the water quality. Sometimes the change in water quality may not be a result of contamination. It may be due to natural occurrences like change in temperature. Water temperature is lower and the density is therefore lowered, and then the water originally near the seabed would go up, and then this will bring manganese, bring the chemical manganese up to the surface. But this can be treated so that the quality can meet the WHO's standard. If the level of manganese is not put under control, then the tap water may become yellow. And therefore, we maintain close communication with our counterpart for weather changes. They also inform Hong Kong of these changes.
How about the water desalination in Singapore? Chairman, maybe I can talk about Singapore's water price and its difference with Hong Kong. Well, as you know, seawater desalination makes use a lot of energy. Well, for Singapore, whenever it produces 1 unit of water, it needs 4 units of electricity. So if we calculate this in accordance with Hong Kong's electricity tariff, then actually it means $3. Now, when Singapore makes its own calculation, it has also taken other factors into account. We may not know all these factors. Well, for our $12 cost, actually it covers a lot of things. First of all, depreciation. Second, transportation of water to every household, and also maintenance. Because now we are using membranes for seawater desalination, and such membranes have to be changed from time to time. So we have to look at all these costs. If we are to compare Singapore and Hong Kong in terms of unit price, we would have to look at the meaning of that $12. It's not just about operation, it's also about transportation to all the households and depreciation of our investments. So what's the price in Singapore? What's the cost when the water is transported to households? Do you have the figure? Now, when they calculate the cost, they use US dollars. It's 50 cents US dollar. Dr. Kwok Ka-ki and Mr. Tan Ka-piu. Chairman, for Hong Kong's water supply, it actually does not give Hong Kong people an incentive to save water. Now we are buying Dongjiang water at a fixed cost. Actually, this is not environmentally friendly. I don't understand why the central government and the Hong Kong SAR governments are not reviewing this. Because if we pay for what we use, then we will have an incentive to save water. I agree to water desalination. And you are telling us that billions of dollars will be spent on it, and eventually we are wasting the water, and now we are talking about paying $3.9 billion for buying Dongjiang water. I think this is really not sensitive. Has the government talked about making any changes? If we are making changes to the agreement, can we not pay for what we use only? So now you are telling us that if we use more water, it's $3.9 billion. If we use less, it's the same, $3.9 billion. Actually, in many provinces in China, a lot of people do not have enough water to use. So how come this state enterprise of China is supplying Hong Kong with so much water? And I'm also very worried about pollution. Here you're telling us that you would check all the heavy metals and the bacteria, amounts, etc. However, now a lot of factories are discharging organic toxins and carcinogenic substances. So can you give us a list of those? We want to get hold of 2 consultancy reports. You have an expert report on seawater desalination, and also you have another report on the pricing of water bought from Guangdong. So I want to see these 2 reports. As for saving water, some countries would recycle their water. It's not desalination. Well, there may be some factories that are using a lot of water, but the water is not highly polluted, so the water can be recycled for other purposes. For example, irrigation. Has the government done this sort of studies? If you have, can you show us the relevant reports? And what's the cost of doing so? About your last question, that is recycling of water for other purposes. Yes, we have been conducting studies in this area. We have a future plan. We hope that in Northeast NT we can make use of recycled water for non-potable purposes. Well, Chairman, you have given 6 or 7 minutes to Mr. Chen Kam-lem. Yes, I will allow him to answer more. Please continue. Yes, we agree that we should tap into different water sources. Other than recycled water, we are looking at other means. For example, whether we can collect rainwater in certain areas. I'm not talking about reservoirs. Now, maybe a building can collect rainwater, and then the rainwater can be used by that building itself, maybe not for drinks, but it can be used for flushing. And then the building would not need so much water from outside. In 2008, we launched a total water management strategy. We were trying to tap into different water sources. Just now you talked about seawater desalination, and now we are conducting a consultancy study on that. As for the present study, we are looking at the possibility of building a desalination plant at Chang Kwan O. Now we do not have the results yet. But how about the last report? That was a technical feasibility study. Later on I can provide you with the relevant information. As for water quality, other than heavy metals, are there other parameters? Maybe our WSD colleague can answer this question. Chairman, for Dongjiang water and the raw water in Hong Kong reservoirs, they will be disinfected in Hong Kong's water treatment plants. The WHO in 2011 published requirements on potable water, and we will do tests accordingly. It covers 89 health-related chemicals. Radioactive substances are also covered. Bacteria are covered as well. As for this 89 organic or inorganic compounds, they also include carcinogens, for example, benzene or solvents. They are all covered in this test list. Can you give us the list? We have already uploaded the list onto our website. So no matter the water comes from Dongjiang or our reservoir, the water will be tested for these 89 health-related substances. Now, due to the time constraints, actually 3 members have indicated that they want to ask questions. Yeah, Mr. Zhang Qingpiu, Wu Qihua, and another member, and I'll draw a line here due to the time constraint. Mr. Chen Ka-piu. Thank you, Chairman. Well, every year we are spending $300 million, and that's a lot. Well, for the SARG's water supply strategy, Now we have entered into an agreement with Guangdong, so I think a lot of manpower and money have already been saved. There are 3 sources of water: collecting fresh water, seawater desalination, and buying Dongjiang water. So how about the cost distribution? Can you let us know? And I do not believe that. Well, actually, for Shenzhen, its GDP is almost as high as that of Hong Kong. I don't believe that the Guangdong province is trying to make money from us by selling us the water. Actually, there is a shortage of resources all over China. So I think originally when this agreement was entered into, it was to ensure stable water supply to Hong Kong. However, it may be counterproductive because we may be wasting water, and it does not give the public or even the government an incentive to come up with better ways to save water. So I think we need to review it. But I think we need such an agreement. So first of all, I hope that a report can be given to us about the 3 water sources I mentioned just now. For example, if 50% of our water comes from water desalination, how much would that cost, etc. And when I think about fresh water, actually I'm more familiar with electricity supply. And another panel, we've been talking about this, because a lot more natural gas will be used for electricity generation. And another agreement has been signed with the mainland concerning the transportation of natural gas from the west to the east. So can we also make reference to that? So when it comes to water supply and its sources, can you give us a report? And also, can we understand more about other energy supplies?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Now, the unit price for tap water is around $8 per cubic meter, and that's including water from Dongjiang and water collected from rainwater. If we use desalinated water, the cost is $12. This is just a very rough estimate. We are preparing consultancy study, and we are looking into the feasibility of a desalination plant in Chengguan-O Area 137. When we have this study conducted, we will have more concrete information on the estimated costs for using either Dongjiang water or desalinated seawater. But I need to reiterate this point. We're not wasting any water either from Dongjiang or water collected or harvested from rainfall. The problem is that the water is only discharged because the reservoir could not hold so much water. Dongjiang water has this advantage in the sense that we can calculate or estimate the consumption, and Dongjiang water will not be wasted. Now, water is a valuable resource, and we need to put this to optimal best use, and that is why we have this strategy, so that the public also is made aware that they should also conserve water. We have some measures. For example, we have the Water Resources and Education Center, and we also have a program called Let's Save 10 Liters of Water, so that the public can also take part in conserving water and reducing wastage of water. Thank you. Mr. Wu Chiwai, followed by Mr. Raymond Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, the department said time and again that the administration attached importance to managing water, and they also encourage the public to conserve water. But I see that there will not be any adjustment on water charges. Of course, for members of the public, they will not have any objection, but you can have different levels of charges. And in fact, for a consumption rate that shows a clear wastage of water, you should consider adjusting the charge so as to reduce wastage of water. The other point is that for Dongjiang water, as the whole of mainland is suffering from water shortage, something should be done. My question for the administration is, have you considered whether this supply agreement is a perpetual agreement or not? Because different provinces, different cities are competing for water now. So what is important for us is that we should be prepared. We should study the feasibility of desalination and also promote water conservation. Third point, for recycled water, I have this idea. We do have water gathering ground and storage tanks. I can't say for specific situations, but I see on a daily basis that these vehicles for cleansing the streets use water from the fresh water supply. So will you consider making these vehicles use the water from storage tanks instead? I think the change in attitude is important, but ultimately I would suggest to the administration that in terms of developing new areas, of designing for new buildings, one element should be incorporated, and that is that should be recycled water, so that we can progressively change our attitude in water consumption. P.S. Thank you, Chairman. First, on different levels of charges, we did consider that, but there is a difficulty. We charge based on consumption, but the user can be an individual or a household or even a number of households. We don't know how many people there are in a household. So if we take a punitive approach, we need to check whether indeed there has been water wastage, or was it just because there are many people in that household. We need to come up with a way to verify the situation. As for Dongjiang water, every year we discuss with the Guangdong province counterpart, and we have so far been negotiating very smoothly. We should be able to secure a stable supply of water. At the same time, however, we will also consider looking for new water sources. Mr. Wu, you mentioned a number of ways, and this is exactly what we want to achieve. We want to consider how every building can have rainwater harvesting facilities, so that rainwater can be reused. For example, some water used for washing could be recycled and reused instead of simply being discharged into the sea. But there should be some planning in terms of building design for facilities like these to be accommodated, because these facilities do occupy some space. So in terms of reducing fresh water supply, we do consider different aspects. Water Supplies Department can provide more information on water gathering grounds or water storage ground. These are basically anti-flooding facility, so that water can be stored underground for the time being, and after heavy rain, the water can then be discharged so as to relieve the pressure of the water mains. I'll defer to my colleagues. In 2008, we introduced the Total Water Management Strategy, and we have been identifying new water sources, one of which is seawater desalination and recycling of water. In fact, since the 1950s, Hong Kong has started using seawater for flushing purpose. Flushing accounts for the major use among non-portable users. So 22% of total water consumption has been replaced by seawater, and that's one of the ways to reduce water consumption. Well, Chairman, I'm not talking about complicated matters. I'm talking about using water from those underground tanks for street cleansing purpose. Yes, we have been considering that as well. We're not totally against the idea, but we need to consider technical matters. We have developed this technology, but there is a standard for water to be used for street cleansing as well. The next step is how this can be implemented. Do you have a timetable? Any timetable? I think the first step is for us to get hold of the data, and then for us to consider the cost effectiveness. If it's cost effective, we will implement it. Next, Mr. Raymond Chan and Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. I'll draw a line here. Mr. Chan. Chairman, Hong Kong buys water from Dongjiang River, and as a consumer, it's reasonable for us to demand quality as well. As a citizen on this earth, we should not waste water. We can waste money but not water. And that's why our members have asked questions from these two perspectives. Well, some mainland officials will think that the mainland is supplying water to us, and unlike other members, we have not exchanged our views with mainland officials. We have not gone to mainland, so we should not have a say. I think Hong Kong's administration is very interesting. When we compare with, when we try to compare ourselves with other cities and provinces, they would say that we have different costs and we should not make such comparison. So my question is very simple. Dongjiang water, is it a benefit for Hong Kong or is it a rip-off? Any figures to reflect that? Say in recent years, what is a profit for selling Dongjiang water to Hong Kong people? Are they actually subsidizing us, or are they actually making a profit? Do you have this information? The other question is on water quality. For the cost, apart from buying Dongjiang water, we also need to factor in the cost for maintaining water quality. So has there been any change in terms of maintaining water quality for Dongjiang water? Lastly, I'd like to say that I'm all for desalination of seawater. To reduce our dependence on or reliance on Dongjiang water, we need to develop our own water source. I think in the long run, the technological cost will reduce, but now this plant will only provide 5 or at most 10% of water supply, so we may not be able to reduce substantially the demand for Dongjiang water. But does the administration have any goal? Let's say, what is the percentage that we aim to achieve in terms of seawater desalination? Shouldn't we prepare for the rainy days in the case that Dongjiang water will be discontinued? I'm not saying that we're being favored or not. According to the supply agreement, we can get a stable and quality supply of potable water. But of course there is a price to pay, and this is the consensus that we reach after negotiations under the supply agreement. We pay a price for a stable and stable supply of water for potable uses in order to meet the demand in Hong Kong. I can't say that we're being favored or not. In terms of the cost for Dongjiang River, combining Dongjiang River and rainwater harvested locally, the cost is roughly $8 per cubic meter. That includes the purchase price and also water quality monitoring efforts and the distribution of treated water to end users. All these are part of the cost. In the future, we will consider different sources like desalination of seawater, rainwater harvesting at individual buildings. All these can help reduce water consumption. It can optimize and prevent over-reliance on one single water source. But of course, we consider the cost effectiveness as well, because for rainwater harvested locally, it is hard to increase in quantity substantially. And Dongjiang water is the most cost-effective method for us to secure safe and quality water supply. We are also looking into the feasibility of seawater desalination and the cost effectiveness of this technology. And we'll need to wait for the study before we have more information on that. For water imported into Hong Kong, we have monitoring measure in Mok Wu pumping station, and all along the imported water has been able to meet the standards used on the mainland. And we have not seen any substantial changes. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, and I'll draw a line here. Thank you, Chairman. Hong Kong is a small place and densely populated. We cannot rely on our own resources, be it energy or water supply or food. We need regional collaboration, or Hong Kong cannot survive. Some members have asked questions about the unit cost and whether there's any wastage. I think the best way is to make comparisons with neighboring places and see what their water costs are. I think this is a good way to answer these questions, because in the long run we understand that for natural resources like fuel or water, in the future we will continue to experience a shortage. This is common sense. So we must prepare for the rainy days. And I very much believe that our professionals, both in Hong Kong and the mainland, will monitor the quality of water. They have technology and guidelines to follow. I see that from the figures that the situation is quite good. Now, for example, the oxygen, biochemical oxygen demand and other chemicals like phosphorus, manganese, nitrate, etc. have decreased significantly in recent years, and the dissolved oxygen level in the Dongjiang water has increased quite substantially, and all these are improvements. Now, in the paper, it's been mentioned that for major contamination incidents affecting the quality of Dongjiang water, what measures should be taken, and corresponding action should be taken. For example, suspension of Dongjiang water, or even reducing or suspending supply of Dongjiang water, stepping up monitoring of Dongjiang water, etc.
But if these mishaps really occur, then there is one thing very important that we should do. How can we ensure adequate water supply for Hong Kong? How many days of water can we keep? Yes, of course, we do not want to see this happen, but we have to be prepared. And if there is a notification system, I think the government should also have some contingency plans in place. So do we have such plans? Yes, Mr. Low, your observation is correct. Well, for the WSD, other than having contingency plans, we also have a number of measures in place. Now we have our own reservoirs, and they serve as a buffer. Now, if unexpected accidents occur, and when it comes to the worst scenario, and we have to stop the supply of Dongjiang River, then what should we do? Now we can, our reservoirs can provide water to Hong Kong for 4 to 6 months. Because we have such a buffer, then we will have time to handle big accidents. And for this period, we can continue to have water to supply. And because we have a notification mechanism, then we will know for sure where the problem lies, and we can talk to our Guangdong counterparts and see how the problem can be resolved as soon as possible, so that the water supply from Dongjiang can be resumed. And also I agree with Mr. Low. For water supply, actually is a regional cooperation, because for the whole Pearl River Delta, actually Dongjiang is not just supplying water to Hong Kong, it also supplies water to Huoyuan, Shenzhen, etc. So for each city, it has its water needs. So in Guangdong Province, it already has a very good plan. That is, each city will be allocated a certain amount of water. Because for Dongjiang this water is not just for drinking. It's also used for navigation, etc. And also we have a very good water supply agreement. We can ensure that Hong Kong people can enjoy high quality potable water. So this is the result of regional cooperation. And we are responsible part of the Guangdong province. We have to be prepared for a rainy day. Well, we need to protect our water sources, and we also need to explore new sources. So that is what we are trying to do under the total water management strategy. Thank you, Chairman. We have been discussing this item for a very long time. I would like to thank the government representatives for attending and answering members' questions. So let's wrap up the discussion of this item. Let's move on to the next one. Please invite the government representatives to come in. We will start the discussion of item 6, regulatory control over lifts and escalator safety and related issues. We would like to welcome the government officials who will take us through the paper. Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. I will be brief because the details are all set out in the paper. Now, with regards to lift and escalator safety, the government's work is divided into 3 areas. First of all, regulatory control with law, that is the Lifts and Escalators Ordinance. And second, support to responsible persons, and also manpower and training of the lift and escalator industry. And I would like to tell you our improvement measures in the pipeline. In December 2012, the Lifts and Escalators Ordinance come into full operation, and the EMSD is empowered to ensure lifts and escalator safety. We have analyzed the 160 odd cases concerning lifts and escalators in the past years, and we discovered that 8 of them are related to the snapping of suspension cables. Now, because suspension cable is the most important component of escalators, so we have asked the EMSD to enhance its requirements concerning suspension cable inspection. And also a relevant photo should be attached in the future investigation report. As for the contractors' performance rating scheme, we have asked the EMSD to do something. That is, contractors with low performance ranking under the CPR should be inspected more often. And also we'll try to find out if the CPR can be optimized so that future inspections can be more focused on contractors with lower performance ranking. As for support to responsible persons, all along we know that we have a system of the lowest bidder would get the contract. We hope that the EMSD can come up with a more appropriate price level so that the responsible persons can make reference to these price levels when they try to find a lift maintenance company. And we have also set up a safety advisory committee, and it will have more communications with the industry. In particular, we want to know more about the subcontracting arrangements in the industry. As for manpower, other than enhancing training, no matter whether it's the construction industry or escalator industry, it seems that it's very difficult to attract newcomers. We hope that we can make use of technology to solve the manpower problem. For example, for regular maintenance work, can we make use of more advanced technology? We hope that the EMSD the universities can carry out more studies in these regards. Thank you. Members, questions, please. I suggest that each member be given 4 minutes. That will include the administration's answers. Our meeting will end at 6. And I can only extend it by 15 minutes. Now, this is a very important issue, and I'm sure members are very interested in it. I'll read out the names of the members who are going to ask questions. Zhang Ka-piu, Chen He-ken, Lo Wei-kwok, Michael Chen, our Vice Chairman, Mak Mei-kyun, Kwok Wai-kyun. Any other member? So let's stick to our time limit. Our meeting will end at 6:15. Mr. Chen Ka-piu. Thank you, Chairman. The government says it's very difficult to recruit people in this industry. I agree. In particular, the threshold of this industry is actually very low. And I find this contract, this is one of the 5 major lift companies, and they are hiring a freshman or a newcomer. His pay is $212 per day. That's $26.5 per hour. And that has not even reached the statutory minimum wage. And this comes into operation in 2012. And he has to work overtime from 5:30 to 6:30. And each day he has to service 6 lifts. So he can get a 1.25 times or 1.5 times pay for this extra hour. And if we work at night, he can get higher pay. However, he can only get the SMW by working OT. And if he refuses to work OT, then he cannot even get the SMW.
3-4年正
So this young newcomer, after working for 3 or 4 years, he becomes a formally qualified worker. And with pay rise, actually the hourly rate would only go up to, say, $31. So the situation is you do not have sufficient manpower, but if you just look at the figures, it seems that there is sufficient manpower. But nowadays, commercial buildings are 60 or 70 stories high, unlike previously where you saw only 30 or 40 stories. And also, they need to work in partners. One would be for regular maintenance, and the other would be for emergency repairs. So for some repaired works, or maintenance works, it was not properly done, and we all see what the problem is now. And the crux of the problem is low wages. Now, some workers told us that they dare not complain about the lack of partners for a task, because once they complained, if they did not complain, nobody would know that the partner was gone. So we really hope that for the committee about to be set up, that the labor union could also take part in it. We have 8 members waiting in line, so please follow the rules. A brief response, please. understand that in terms of wage and deployment issues, sector also has some views, and that's why we want to set up an advisory committee to look into these structural problems. And definitely we will invite members of the trade and also labor unions to take part in it. We are going to conduct an anonymous survey to know more about the problems in the sector. I personally have asked subcontractors and people from the trade about it, and my information may not be correct, so we want to conduct a formal survey. We also agree that workers are being underpaid, so the administration will be telling the responsible person the reasonable price for maintenance work so that they know what price level is most appropriate. Next, Mr. Chan Ha-Ken. I want to follow up on two matters. One, for Shinford, it will be this license will be suspended for 2 years. I think this is good, so that substandard subcontractors can improve their quality. And there are 94 buildings involved. I want to know whether the administration has helped them in looking for another subcontractor. And I also agree with the recommended price level for reference, because for owners corporation they may not have the expert knowledge on lift and escalators maintenance, and very often when they give out tenders, they only award the tender with the lowest bid. So it will be easier for them to choose if performance scores are also, or reference performance scores are also provided. So does the administration have any ways to let the public know roughly how much would that cost while maintenance of a lift be done? Well, I think this is this is a good direction to follow. I hope that you would consider that. Yes, I will take the first part of the question. I'll defer to the EMST to answer the second part. We will make public certain information, but different lifts are of different brands, and the different buildings have different number of stories, so on and so forth. So if we just set out the reference charge or reference price, it may not be too useful for OCs, but we are considering how these reference information can be released. Deputy Director. Now, when we suspend the license, we know that there are buildings currently maintained by Shinford Engineering, and we want to make sure that the other subcontractor will be acceptable by those buildings. So after this incident happened, we immediately informed either the OCs or the property management companies of these 90 plus buildings, and we've contacted over 30 subcontractors which are willing to offer assistance to these owners. These owners may have difficulty in preparing new contracts, and that is why we have liaised with the professional bodies like Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, so on and so forth, for them to provide professional assistance to owners. And the administration is also responsible. We have set up a 13-staff dedicated team for this purpose, and every day we will keep a record of any exchange with our owners, and also the progress of the tendering. We have received so far 40 queries, and all the involved buildings have started the tendering process. And so far, 11 buildings have engaged new subcontractors for the maintenance service, and we'll continue to monitor the situation. Thank you, Chairman. Next, Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, and then Mr. Michael Tim. Thank you, Chairman. On the 2nd of March, after this incident, lift accident at North Point, the EMST acted quite swiftly. Within 3 days, they checked all the 200 lifts maintained by the subcontractor in question, and when the problems were identified, the lifts were immediately suspended from operation. For regular maintenance, as in the past, the administration of the department has conducted random inspection. Why is it that the administration has not been able to identify any problem? In this incident, all 4 suspension ropes were broken, so the rusting of ropes have been quite serious. Why wasn't that detected by the department? I understand that the department has also reviewed the work done by subcontractors with lower performance scores. It's been close to 4 weeks now. What is the result of the review? How can the public be reassured? Next, about cables. Members of the public are concerned about substandard suspension cables being used in existing lifts. I want to know whether the department has discovered any irregularities. P.S. Chairman, concerning reviewing the contractors with low performance scores, I will defer to my colleagues. As for suspension cables, we reviewed over 160 incidents concerning mechanical faults of lifts, and many of them have to do with cables. And that's why when we ask contractors to prepare maintenance reports, we would require this information on the maintenance of cables, and there are several parts in particular of the cables that are of importance, and we do require this information together with photos so that our staff will know the situation even before the inspection is conducted. As for the performance score, we consider the safety aspects, and those with inferior performance will be subject to more frequent inspections. I'll defer to EMST to answer the other part of your question. Now, after this incident, we have already reviewed the situation. We have inspected 147 lifts maintained by contractors with lower performance scores. We have a 3-tier structure or 3-tier mechanism to ensure the safety of our lifts and escalators. First of all, the registered contractors are required to maintain a monthly maintenance, and every year a registered engineer is required to conduct annual maintenance. And also, thirdly, the department will conduct random inspections. In fact, in 2009, we did inspect the lift and there was no problem. And according to our code of practice, there is a requirement that the cables meet a certain international standard. And during the annual examination, the registered contractor is required to proffer the so-called birth certificate of the cables to ensure the quality. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Chairman, 2 short questions. One about the professional qualifications of lift workers and the accreditation of their qualification. What I understand is that basically the training will be given by his own company, and that is to say the worker will have to work for 4 years within the company, and then they would need to go through certain hours of training. But the training courses are not accredited, and there is no examination or tests, and then the worker will become registered. And when I phoned and asked, I found that that person or that worker, registered worker, didn't have to work himself. He could just oversee another worker that has yet to be qualified. So what is happening to the system? Do you have confidence in this system? Do we need a review? Lower Kwok's question has been answered by the administration. Just now, as mentioned, some lifts and questions have been inspected. So if no information were given in advance, you might overlook those problems. In the past, for MTR railways, you use equipment. You cannot just have a visual inspection. If you do not use any equipment, if you do not rely on any information from contractors, how can you do an independent inspection? I'd like to know more about that. First, on the qualification of workers, I'll defer to EMSD. The EMSD, when conducting random inspection of lifts, they actually visit the lifts to do inspection. When we ask contractors to submit maintenance reports, we ask for more detailed information, but our staff do actually go to conduct the inspection. But have those lifts been inspected? Well, it was inspected in 2009. So how was the inspection done in 2009? Just with naked eyes, or was any equipment used? That's what I want to ask. Inspection was conducted with the aid of some high technology equipment and other tools, and we also have an on-site examination. The procedure would as detailed in the code of practice. So I think we need to engage professionals to find out why in 2009 nothing was discovered, and yet in this incident all the cables were broken. Yes, your reply? We will make use of every opportunity to optimize our system. As said by PS just now, we have a Safety Advisory Committee. Apart from the sector and trade association, we also seek views from groups and deputations on how our procedure can be optimized. On the qualification of personnel, in December, the new legislation came into operation. There are 3 parts. First is for workers to go through 3 years of training and apprenticeship, and the other route is the attainment of certificate and work experience, and for those not having any qualification, they need to have 8 years of training to get 8 years of experience together with a trade test.
Do you think that's enough? Well, for the North Point lift accident, actually the EMSD thinks that the maintenance work has not been done properly. That's very obvious. And the Permanent Secretary said that the present monitoring mechanism will be reviewed, and some improvement measures have been put forward. And actually for this North Point lift, it was random checked in 2009, but I think for this random check system, maybe you should improve on it as well, because for suspension cables, sometimes they age so much that you have to replace the whole cable. Now when you conduct a random check, maybe it's still not problematic, but after some years, the engineers would find that it's beyond repair. So when it comes to monitoring, I think you should do a better job. Maybe you should not just conduct random checks. And I hope the Safety Advisory Committee can come up with a better system, because 3 or 4 years after a random check, the situation may have deteriorated a lot. So for the property management companies and the OCs, maybe you can advise them not to choose the lowest bidder all the time. There are other factors that they should also take into consideration. As for your contractor's performance rating scheme, some people may not know what it is. Well, some people may score 100 points, and what does that mean? And for Shineford, it has a score of 69 points. And what does that mean to ordinary people or to OC members or management companies? Maybe you can grade these lifts companies, for example, satisfactory, good, poor, etc. Because people don't know what those points means, what is meant by 50, and if 50 is good, then maybe 69 is excellent. So can you teach people basic knowledge? And there should be a checklist so that people can have something to rely on. Now, with regard to the random check system, yes, I basically agree with you. Now, we have asked the EMSD to conduct a review, and we hope the system or the scheme can be simplified. Now, actually, the scheme is divided into two parts. One is about safety and the other is about maintenance. And property owners may not know too much about this, so we hope that the scheme can be simplified. And with a simplified CPR scheme and with price levels as reference, then maybe it's easier for OCs to choose. Thank you, Chairman. Well, the property management companies are a very important partner of ours. So when the new piece of legislation was enacted, we conducted some workshops. We hope that property management people can have a better understanding of the new legislation. Over 3,000 people have attended such workshops. And also we are in close liaison with OCs and owners committees. Lee Kuhn and then Kwok Wai-hung. Ms. Mack? Well, Chairman, first of all, I would like to ask the government this. For qualified or registered lift workers, how many do we have? 4,960? So for each company, how many qualified people do they have? Do you have this information? And for one company, how it is responsible for how many lifts? And so what about the workload of such lift workers? It is so heavy that the work quality cannot be assured. And also, what kind of pays are these lift workers getting so as to prevent a brain drain? And also, when we look at the CPR scheme, For this company in problem, it has a score of 69 points. Well, unless you haven't updated your websites, otherwise I haven't seen warning letters sent to this company by you. And it is inspecting a lot of lifts. But there is another company that is inspecting 700 lifts, and it's a much bigger company. However, he's got warning letters from you. So if a company is bigger and if it's inspecting so many lifts, of course it will have a bigger impact on us. And its score is 81 points, a bit higher than Scheinfeld. So for big companies, they are managing so many lifts. Will you be focusing more on such companies? For this big company that I mentioned, it has received warning letters from you. So what will you do to this kind of company? Because now they are managing so many lifts, do they have enough qualified people to look after such lifts? EMSD, please. Well, during our random checks, we would use a risk-based approach. Each year we will conduct about 9,000 inspections. And we will look at the size of the relevant company and how many lifts it's managing, etc. So for those companies that are managing many lifts, which means a huge impact on people, then we will inspect it more frequently. But we will also have to assess the risks of the lifts concerned. For example, if the lifts are relatively old, we will inspect them more often. And if the contractor's ranking is low, then we will also inspect it more often. So we hope that by analyzing the risks, we can make better use of our resources. But of course, there is always room for improvement. As for each company's manpower, we will ask the companies to report to us as to how many qualified workers they have and how many lifts they are managing. So we would know the ratio between these two. If the ratio is unreasonably high, we will pay particular attention to such companies. Mr. Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I have several questions. Last week, at a council meeting, I asked the Secretary this question, but he evaded it. Now, with regard to the present code of practice, there are 15 items of work which require 2 persons. Now, for items to be inspected, you have A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. But I know that there is a shortage of manpower. If there is a work item that needs 2 workers, actually only 1 worker would be working on it. That's what the workers told me. So for your inspection, can you also monitor this point? Can this be used as a reference for performance monitoring point? The Secretary didn't ask me last time. I hope you can give me an answer today. And also for the suspension cables, they are supposed to have so-called birth certificates. So for this Scheinfeld accident, did those cables have birth certificates? If we get hold of these certificates, then we will know the manufacturer of these suspension cables. Then we can check the other cables that are made by the same manufacturer. Well, Chairman, with regard to workload, we have to understand the situation. Now, there are some work items which would require 2 workers, but only 1 worker would work on it. Now, for a responsible person, if he works for 250 days a year and he works on 4 lifts a day, then if that is the case, then we have enough manpower. Well, but for a contractor, maybe he has enough manpower, but he only sent 1 person to work on the lifts. We will have to check further and try to find out ways to improve. The Safety Advisory Committee will look at that. Well, I'll tell you what the situation is like. 2 workers may set out together, and they are supposed to work on the same lift, but suddenly there is an emergency call, and one of the workers will leave for another building. Yes, I think there are some structural problems. We have to talk to the industry. As for birth certificates, maybe MST can answer this question. Yes, Chairman. With regards to suspension cables and whether they are up to standard, now we are still looking into this case. Birth certificate is one of the evidences that we will collect. But now we are in the course of investigation, so maybe I shouldn't say too much about the North Point accident. Now, how about the responsibility of the responsible persons? In the new ordinance, they have more responsibilities. Other than the owners, there are also responsible persons. Now, maybe the power is now given to the management company. Well, should the management company shoulder the responsibility alone, and can the owners of individual units be protected? EMSD will answer the question. Now, in the law, well, actually, when electoral members scrutinize the relevant bill, we have discussed this already. That is how we can make improvements to the definition of responsible persons. Now, in the old ordinance, actually it was enacted in the 1960s. At that time, property owners were held responsible. However, now the many buildings managed by big management companies, and now the responsibility has fallen on to management companies. The OCs have empowered the management companies to do so. So management companies is actually the first responsible person.
Next, Dr. Kenneth Chan, and then Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Dr. Kenneth Chan. Sorry, Chairman, I was on the phone. I have several observations to make, and I'd like to share this with the administration. No one wants to see any accidents, be it staff of VMST or frontline workers. We don't want to see any lift accidents. So, that's the reason why the legislation was amended. That's why we have all these new systems. Now, on random inspections, things have improved. Let's say for unscrupulous management, there is a way for them to shun the random inspections. They can cut corners by, say, cutting costs or suppressing their workers. So for the way forward, I have several suggestions. There should be a mechanism for people to be whistleblowers. For frontline workers, they are trained and they have professional qualifications, but they feel that they are not being respected because they should work in partners, but instead the company has asked him to work by himself. So we can set up a mechanism for these whistleblowers to notify the administration about these problems. Now, those working at the managerial level are good at making calculations. They try to make use of loopholes. Also, there should also be a notification mechanism for owners. This may not be scientific, but at least if we have more mechanisms like this, and that problems can be reflected to the administration, then you may factor this in your risk assessment. If you receive complaints from members on the public, you can do something, and the companies can also be alerted. Now, for the assessment forms, I think it's very difficult to understand. As said by the administration just now, despite numerous complaints, these companies or contractors might still get a very high performance score. So we need a notification mechanism. Say if a company receives a complaint or a warning letter from you, the points will be deducted within this quarter, and there could be communication with users so that they know what's going on, and this is enhancing awareness. If these could be done under this new legislation, things could be more transparent and we could avoid accidents like these from happening. P.S. Now, like I said before, I will ask the EMSD to review the CPR system. Now, there are a lot of factors to consider when we award scores. One is complaints received. About complaints from workers, I think that in the past it was quite a sensitive issue because workers dare not complain against their employers. But now, with the new system, the workers are already unpacked to their employers because of the new registration system. So I will ask the EMSD to review the notification system and see if any improvements can be made. All right, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. I made the phone call. 9,000. It said that 9,000 audit inspections are conducted by EMSD every year. So 25 occasions per day. So how many hours? How many teams are involved? Can you tell this panel? If you cannot tell this panel now, all right. I just want to know how much time is spent for each team to conduct audit inspections. My next question is that there are former EMSD staff working as registered contractors. Is there any mechanism to find out this information? This is the cause of the matter. I mean, not necessarily the causal link, but if you can have a chart showing all the links, and then that would be the best. And also, just like the old age living allowance, you have a notification system, you also have a random inspection mechanism. Now, if people make incorrect reports, what will happen? Now, for old age living allowance, if the declarations are not correct, as long as it's not intentional, the elderly person will not be held responsible. What about this system? Will it have sufficient deterrence for misreporting? And also, another problem is that you have a computer system, and just like what Ms. Mack asked about just now, do you have a chart? Is there any relationship between any warning letters received and the risk involved? Does it mean that for contractors which have received warnings from your department, they have a higher risk, or is it because they have received warnings from you, they in fact have a lower risk of having accidents? Do you have this mechanism? Yes. Chairman, for audit inspections, I want to emphasize that it's not just based on their own reports. It's based on a number of factors. All right, Mr. White, I know you are very conscientious. I'm just saying that in case problems are not identified during inspections, what should happen? Will they be held liable? Because even when they have bought new cables, they may not necessarily be using the new cables. They can resell those new cables to someone else, just like money laundering. I know this. So on the face of it, the contractor might have spent $10 million in buying cables, but then the contractor may still use old cables and resell those new cables. I'll ask the EMSD to give a brief reply. We have 23 officers responsible for inspections, and we base our inspections on various considerations. 23, but you need to do 25 inspections per day, and 23 inspections you need to work in pairs, right? Otherwise, if somebody falls over, you need to consider safety. So you have 23 officers. How many teams do you have? Depending on the need for inspection. Around 750 per month. I know that's around 25 inspections per day. You have only 23 officers. How can that be done? And you need to work in pairs, a team of 2, right? No, we can have inspections by just one single officer. All right, provide this information later. Last member, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung, and then we'll wrap up this item. Thank you, Chairman. Well, just now the administration said that the manpower ratio at the present is appropriate. But I strongly disagree, because I learned from the industry that there is a severe manpower shortage. It's said that, well, in terms of the number of workers, so on and so forth, can you give me information so that we know whether it's reasonable or not? And I'd like to ask this question again because it hasn't been answered just now. For those supposedly to be working in pairs, if they're not in fact working in pairs, will that cause a deduction of the performance points under the system? Because in order to understand whether these workers are working in accordance with the guidelines, we think that it's important that this become part of the criterion for awarding performance points. Yes. Now, we looked at the registered personnel and their work records, and on the face of it, there should be sufficient manpower. But we also understand that while setting off as a team of 2, the company may then deploy one of the workers to go on emergency repair cases. And that's why we need to set up a committee to resolve the structural problems. And I'll defer to the EMSD to answer the other part of the question. According to the legislation, the registered contractor is required to work in accordance with the Code of Practice. And there are 15 tasks set out in the Code of Practice, each requiring a team of 2. If this is not done, the contractor concerned will be in breach of the Code of Practice, and we can take action. As for deduction of performance monitoring points, on the one hand, we want to simplify the CPR scheme. On the other hand, we also want this to be effective. We will seek views from stakeholders and members of the trade before we consider any amendments. Well, but it's not difficult. You just add one more entry to the list of tasks. I want to clarify that at a time when the CPR scheme was introduced, it was introduced for the purpose of letting owners understand the performance of contractors. For EMSD, basically, action could be taken when irregularities are identified during inspections. We do not need to look at the CPR score. About manpower, have you considered the number of stories? In the past, there would be a lift for, say, for every 8 or 10 stories. But now a lift can run along 60 stories. Have you considered this part? The time needed for inspecting a lift for 10 stories or a lift for 60 stories could be totally different, and the procedure could be very different. We take average figures, but we have considered whether manpower is sufficient in relation to the number of stories for a lift. Now, we're running out of time, and if the answers from the administration are not clear enough, members, please ask for a written reply. For this item, thank you, representatives of the administration, for attending. Chairman, I asked about the number of lifts and the number of staff for each registered contractor. They will be giving us the written reply. Is that right? You may follow up on this on other occasions. AOB. Any other business? Anything under AOB from members? If not, okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.